This is 6.2 Technical Model. Technical models are used to analyse technical performance. It involves breaking down a skill or technique in order to highlight any points at which they are going wrong and how they can correct this. It is qualitative as opposed to quantitative, which is what notational analysis is. In notational analysis, the performance is analysed based off how many times a certain skill or technique is carried out, rather than how well they were carried out and why they may not have been as effective. There are different ways to determine the perfect technical model. You can use literature, elite level athletes, a combination of the two, or it can be subjective. Literature could mean referring to guides and other written documents telling a person how to carry out a certain technique in the proper way. Elite level athletes means taking an elite athlete and breaking down what they are doing and trying to replicate how they are doing it in order to replicate the perfect model in a more practical way. It enables them to see how it might work in a game situation. Alternatively, a person may choose to use a combination of both literature and elite level athletes, as well as being subjective, meaning they incorporate their own opinions on how a certain technique should be carried out, or this might include things from how they've been taught to do it before. Or alternatively, they can incorporate common mistakes that they've seen other people do, and they want their person to avoid. When discussing technical models, there are three phases: preparation, execution, and recovery. The preparation phase is the stage where a person is getting ready to perform the technique. The execution phase is the stage at which they actually perform the key aspect of the technique, so the part that has the most impact. And the recovery phase is the stage following the execution of the technique, so the follow-up to the technique, which ensures continued success of the action. There are different ways to collect the data needed for a technical model. One of the easiest ways to do it is by recording or photographing a person doing the technique. These recordings can then be put into software such as SlowPro and Coach's Eye, which allow a person to slow down, speed up and pause the footage, which can allow them to analyse every stage of the technique to see which bits need working on or why certain phases of the technique are not working properly and how they can go about fixing it. It's also a good idea to take recordings or photos from different angles, as these can aid a person in knowing which parts of the body should be doing, which you might not get if you only take footage from one angle. For example, if you took footage from the left side of a person, then they may only be able to see what one side of their body is doing and won't know what the other side is doing wrong or how to correct it. Similarly, another way of doing it is to have a one-on-one chat with the performer, showing them the footage captured and talking them through what they did right and wrong and how to fix it. The box out and rebound is a manoeuvre carried out in basketball in order to gain possession of the ball after a rebound. It is a key thing to learn, as whoever has the most possession in a game has the better chance of winning, and this, if carried out well, will increase the percentage of possession your team has during the game. There are three phases to the box out and rebound manoeuvre: the preparation phase, execution phase, and recovery phase. In the preparation phase, the person trying to get the ball should be on their toes and have their knees bent for added stability, and begin by facing their opposing player, whilst making contact with them by placing their forearm on the body of the opposing player, preferably their chest. As the ball leaves the hands of the player taking the shot, the defending player should begin to rotate their body to face the ball and the basket is going towards, while still staying in contact with their player as they locate the ball and try to judge the trajectory of it. In the execution phase, this is the point where the person performing the box out leaves their player and performs an explosive vertical jump with their hands ready to catch the ball with their elbows out. They then chin the ball so that other players can't steal it out of their hands as easily. In the recovery phase, the player with the ball lands bending their knees and shielding the ball from the other players. They then pivot away from the defender, find the outlet and pass the ball to another player on their team. So here we have a comparison of a beginner player and a more professional player. So in the preparation stage, the beginner started well. They had contact with their player and their knees were bent. They probably could have been on their toes a bit more so that they were able to move off the mark a bit quicker. They're side-on so they can see where the ball is coming from, and they turned their body well and remained in contact with their player as they turned to face the ball. In the execution phase, the beginner player didn't explode up in a vertical jump to get the ball in the air. Instead, they waited for the ball to fall down to their hands, and they didn't bring the ball up to their chest. Instead, they kept the ball around the height of their stomach. This would have made it easy for the defender to slap it out of their hands. They also should have stuck their elbows out a bit more, as this would have enabled them to make more space for themselves before passing the ball on. In the recovery phase, they turned in towards the defender and didn't shield the ball, which makes it much easier for the defender to steal the ball from them. They also should have been slightly quicker looking for the outlet to ensure less hesitation when making the pass. There are some advantages and disadvantages to technical analysis. So in the advantages, it allows you to be specific with the feedback, as you can break down the technique into smaller stages and therefore pinpoint the steps that are letting you down so you can then correct them. The fact that the person will have recorded the player doing the techniques means that they can repeatedly go over the footage to review it. So they might use slow motion, pausing and speeding up and slowing it down further. It is also qualitative rather than quantitative, meaning that the coach can sit down with the player and verbally discuss and explain what the model shows rather than just giving them a list of numbers to represent their performance. You can also apply it to any sport, and it can be used for an isolated technique or skill as well as an entire game. In terms of the disadvantages, the quality of the footage collected can vary depending on the equipment used. If you don't have a lot of money, the original video will be quite a bad quality based from the camera. And if you don't want to spend money on the specific software, then the range of things you can do in the analysis will be limited. If you wanted to do this for an entire football squad, it would first of all take a long time to gather and analyse the footage of each player, and following that, wouldn't necessarily be practical to sit down with each and every one of them, go through the footage and analyse with them, and then take the time to put the corrections in place within training. The level of knowledge from the person analysing is also important. If they don't have enough knowledge on the sport or technique they are analysing, then they will not be able to coach someone to help them improve it. They might even pass on bad habits or teach techniques improperly, which could potentially cause injury. And although they may have corrected a person's technique based off the technical analysis and training, that's quite an isolated environment, and the player may not be able to replicate that in a real game situation, so it hasn't benefited their performance within the game just in training.